The truth is out there, but the Pentagon says it's not keeping secrets that explain UFOs. A government report due out later this month will provide more information about these unidentified flying objects, known in the military, by the way, as unidentified aerial phenomenon, or UAPs. But according to many news reports, the Pentagon's account will largely be inconclusive. And Laura, just the idea that the government can't explain some of these UAPs, I mean, come on, doesn't that just fuel theories that actually become economic drivers? I mean, Roswell stands to gain at the end of the month. If I was them, I'd hold a big party when this thing gets released. But this could be very interesting. What's your sense about how the Pentagon is handling this so far?
Well, that is not a bad idea, actually. If Mayor Dennis Kintai is listening, that would be something to suggest, right? To get a bunch of people.
That's right.
I go to Roswell fairly regularly. I know I've mentioned this before, but these days I go to Roswell a pretty regular amount, maybe a couple times a month. And I was just there last weekend, and there were a lot of people up and down the UFO museum, Main Street, looking at all the UFO museum, the shops, buying things. So it is definitely an economic driver, especially during the summer months, but which is crazy because it's like 108 down there today. But in any event, no, I think that what's interesting about the idea that the government is basically maybe saying in this report, it's anticipated they probably will deny any knowledge, or they will once again say that it can't be confirmed, right? That there's no evidence one way or the other. Well, that just sort of fuels the conspiracy. Right. That's the thing about conspiracies is they always, they can always be explained by another conspiracy. But personally, I'm a huge fan of sci-fi, and I wanted to point out, in case people don't see that back there, I'm going to see if I can. I can't. There it is.
There it is.
There's my. Oh, well, you can't see it that well, but there's my Star Trek, George Takei signed, I'm
jealous.
Picture of George Takei that I got at a Star Trek convention. So I was one of my first. But I'm a huge sci-fi fan, and I was a huge X-Files fan. So this fuels right into all of that. And I think that, those images from the pilots are really interesting.
Yeah.
When you see those reports and their real-time reactions to those, it's very interesting. And so, I mean, they are exactly that. They're unexplained, unidentified flying objects, or UAPs. That's what they are.
Senator, interesting when you think about, no one would ever question a Navy commander or a Navy pilot, but there's lots and lots of these sightings from these Navy folks. Laura just referenced that 60 Minutes interview from just a couple of weeks ago that kind of woke up the country to what's going on. We got pilots saying they see these things all day, every day. And my question is, all right, if they're not extraterrestrials, where are these things coming from? Why does this always seem to be seen in restricted airspace? Have you noticed that? I mean, something's going on here. What's your sense of, as a security issue, being very serious here, should we be concerned here?
I think we certainly, to a degree, certainly should be concerned because we obviously are less supportive countries in the world are not going to tell us when they create something that could do that, that come in and spy on us. And that's the conspiracy I immediately see, is it's all those bad guys building these machines and these radar things, and they're coming in and they're going to pick us up and take us away. I'm not real sure that I'm ready yet to believe that it's alien into humans or alien beings that's going to come in and take us all off to Mars or wherever for a sauna or vacation. I think there is an explanation, a scientific explanation of it. Whether we know it, whether the Army knows that or not, is still suspect in my mind. I strongly believe that they know a lot more than they're willing to tell us. I think what I've seen so far on CBS and read, I'm amazed that the Army has been this open about some of the things I've seen. But one just little quick thing that I thought was absolutely hysterical is one of the sightings, there was a whole group of these unidentified flying phenomenons, and suddenly two of them started fighting with each other.
Right.
And I'm just going, what? So if they're out there to come and get us or to do damage to us or spy on us, what the heck were those two doing? Playing it? They said it was like a dogfight. That's how you tell it was military. It looked like a dogfight going on between them. And so I'm going, not so sure this is on the up and up, that somebody someplace is having a wonderful time.
Well, you have to think, they've declassified those 3 videos that we've all seen now all over the news. There's a
Right.
bunch more because, again, as a reminder, these are not folks' cell phone cameras. These are from fighter jets. They're cameras fighting, these things. Sophie, I got to get Martin Heinrich in here, our senator. He has been quoted now saying, taking the data we've seen and the videos we've seen in their testimony seriously is the right thing to do. Is that the right place to start, just to take this seriously?
That's not an out there response. I
wouldn't
that's
think.
a pretty measured response.
Right.
He's not, wrapping his own head in tinfoil, and he's also not poo-pooing it. He is looking for, let's get the facts out on the table. At the risk of being a little bit of a wet blanket, I actually really appreciated David Axe on the Daily Beast. His discussion of this issue was like, let's think about this for a moment. Are aliens that interested in our aircraft that they're going to put all of that resource into the aircraft after they've traveled however many miles? Or just going to focus on those? Who's really interested in our aircraft? And to Diane's point, that would be folks who you put it nicely, I can't remember, but our adversaries in the global in the global space. And so I think part of what makes this strange for people, difficult to wrap their minds around, including it sounds like for some members of the military, is that these crafts seem to behave in ways that don't really fit into easy explanations. So is it possible that an adversary has come up with a new technology and didn't share it with us? That remains to be seen.
So can I just
Please.
jump in real quick and play
Yeah.
devil's advocate? So, I think that sometimes people, when they think of other beings outside of this earth and our concept of it, we think of them as omnipotent, right? All-knowing.
Yeah.
They're going to know everything. I think that they are probably more advanced than us, but I think it's totally possible that there could be a reconnaissance team that gets sent down to investigate what we're about. We have archaeologists that go back and look at primitive cultures, right? This idea of the tools that they use and the things that they were looking at. We have entire fields dedicated to this, people working on their PhDs, all to kind of look at a primitive culture, a different, way of doing things that isn't as advanced as maybe we think of now. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that would be the case. I think that in my mind, and people are going to think I'm a kook, and that's fine, but in my mind, I think it's probably just as likely, if not more likely, that would be going on than that the Chinese or Russians or anybody else would be that far advanced than us. Because I just don't think that, given just, there's a lot of hackers out there, but I don't know that they're actually coming together for state-sponsored programs that go to that level.
Be a heck of a hack, that's for sure.
Bitcoin and taking our information.
That's right.
That's just me.
Mayor Kintai, you have your orders from Laura Sanchez. I was in
And
Roswell.
by the way, I do think that Senator Heinrich is smart in saying this about the UFO investigation, because he is going to be running for statewide election here pretty soon. So why not support?
It's an important issue.
Yes.
I was in Roswell this past weekend, and I'm telling you,
that's right.
That's right. They're poised to have a big one if they do it right. Mayor, we're watching you. Have to wait and see what exactly is in that report, unfortunately. Until then, we'll all just have to keep our eyes and minds open, I guess. When we come back to the line, we jump into another unexplained phenomenon, redistricting.